Hike.
What's up, YouTube? I'm Spenser Davis. That is Derek Peterson. We are with Saturday Football, and today we're going to be talking about the Georgia Bulldogs, the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs. FPI has them in the neighborhood of 11 wins. The DraftKings line is 10.5. This is pretty interesting, man. That they won last year, and one main storyline for me, or one thing that I'm thinking about is like, with the way Georgia has recruited over the years and, the success they had, and then they finally break through last year, is this a team that is going to break through into that Death Star tier of college football teams, with Ohio State and Alabama? I think it's the top two. And you look at the schedule, and I think that option is there for them. What do you think whenever you're breaking down this Georgia team here?
Yeah, I think the big question that Georgia's going to answer this season is whether or not last season was them sort of learning to get over that last hump. And now that they're over that last hump, being, beating Alabama and going to actually play for a national title, because they were right on the doorstep for so many years, they're going to answer one way or the other, whether this team, like you said, is now a Death Star team, or if that was just a really good season for them, culminating with one of the best defenses that we've ever seen in college football. And that, that side of the ball is what's going to answer that question. I think I don't really have a ton of questions about what's going to happen with them offensively. I think they could, average 40 a game, because there is no reason to question Stetson Bennett anymore. They're going to have the best wide receiver core in the SEC. They're going to have the best offensive line in the SEC, even though they lose Zamir White and, James Cook. There's no reason to question their running backs. I think the guy that they've got, Kendall Milton, I believe, he's coming off an MCL injury. He looks like a potential future superstar for them. And they just reload in the backfield. So, there's no reason to question offensively. And even on top of that, they're returning 8 starters from that offense from last year. Defensively is different. Only returning 3 defensive starters. They lose, Nakobe Dean, who was a big part of that defense. And they lose, what half of their starting players on the defensive side of the ball got drafted in the first round. And they also lose their defensive coordinator. So the question with Georgia's defense is, are they going to reload like every other team reloads in college football? Or because of the way that they've recruited, is it just a different, is it more, are they more Alabama like than any other team in college football? I would guess right now that question, the answer to that question is, yeah, they're more Alabama-like, because I've got in my notes 3 guys on the defensive side of the ball: Keely Ringo, who I think is the best corner in football; Jalen Carter, who maybe was their best defensive lineman last year; and then Nolan Smith.
It's tough to say, but yeah.
And then
all 3 of those guys are awesome.
And Nolan Smith was a former number 1 overall recruit.
He's a freak athletically.
He has not been a disappointment, but he's been playing behind superstars. So this feels like this is his time to star. And to have a number 1 overall recruit that just kind of waits a couple years and produces, because he still produced. He produced last year. He had one of his best years of his career last year. But not really have the expectations of being a number 1 overall player for a defense. And we need you to give us, 15 tackles for loss right away as a freshman. He didn't have to do that. Now he's been in this program for 2 years, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is. And now I think he can star. So this defense, I think, is going to be nasty. I just ran through the offense. I think they will have one of the better offenses in the SEC. So when you run through their schedule, like you said, FPI projects 11.6 wins, 1.3 losses. The win total is 10.5. I think you could take the over. I go through the schedule and I've got 7 automatic wins and 5 probable wins, and nothing that I view as a toss up. Nothing that I view as a danger game.
I mean, I would put Oregon in there, just out of respect for another top Power 5 program that has been doing a good job. Obviously, first-year head coach with Dan Lanning. It's likely that Georgia will win that game by double digits. But I do have Oregon as a danger game, just kind of out of respect for that. It is pretty much a home game. I believe it's being played in Atlanta,
It is.
technically a neutral site. I'll tell you where I think
But Oregon is traveling from the
yes,
complete opposite end of the country, and Georgia is just kind of like walking out of into its backyard.
right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, a 90-10 fan split, et cetera. All
They do travel well,
qualifiers
though.
on neutral site.
They do travel.
They do.
Well, Oregon
Yeah.
does.
But I mean, Athens isn't that far.
No, it's not.
But I'll tell you what, man, the schedule is interesting. There's a 4-week stretch here where they get Florida and Tennessee in back-to-back games, but they're both at home. Okay. And then the next 2 games are at Mississippi State.
The Florida game is in Jacksonville.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, Florida game will be a neutral site. Yes, Tennessee's at home, and Georgia's technically the home team. Not that matters, but yes, that'll be. They play that in Jacksonville, I believe.
Yeah,
Florida and Tennessee, and then the next 2 games are Mississippi State and at Kentucky. And if Georgia is going to be a Death Star program, Death Star programs sweep all 4 of those. You go 4-0. And like Mississippi State and Kentucky are pretty good. Like they've, I like what Mike Leach is doing. Mark Stoops has done a good job for a long time and has that program as high as it's maybe ever been. Josh Heupel had a great year 1. Florida's got a lot of talent. But with all that being said, if Georgia is the level that we think they are, they will win all 4 of those games. They will win at least 11 regular season games, and we'll see them in the SEC title game again.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think the most likely scenario for their season is that they're playing for another SEC title game against who? Probably Alabama, maybe Texas A&M if you buy their recruiting class. But the most likely scenario for them is that they're playing for another SEC title. And the 2 games, I starred 2 games, and those games, I don't necessarily want to call them like danger games, trap games, because I think that Georgia's just supremely talented, and they're going to be more talented than they don't play Alabama in the regular season. They're going to be more talented than every team they play. They'll be favored in every game that they play. The Oregon game, there's a lot of there's momentum from folks who think that game is going to be closer than maybe Vegas thinks that it'll be, because when the Vegas line opened, it was huge. It was like 18 points or something like that. There are folks specifically in the northwest part of the country that think that game is going to be a little bit closer. There are scenarios where I can see that happening, but I have that listed as a probable win. I think Georgia's is the better team, and we're gonna have to see Bo Nix before we buy that Bo Nix is turned it around and is having fun and whatever the joke was. I started South Carolina on the road in week 3. And I started the Mississippi State game on the road. South Carolina is an interesting team to peg, just with what Beamer did in his first year, and now you've got Spencer Rattler kind of joining the fold. He was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be the number 1 overall draft pick, like the top quarterback taken. Then he gets replaced. So he was a young guy. Was everybody just wrong, or is I say this a lot? Progression is never linear. It's never what we expect. What does he look like? So I have that game starred. I think that could be interesting, especially early in the season. And then I have the Mississippi State game starred because weird things happen in Starkville. Weird things happen against Mike Leach coached teams. But still, I have both of those games as probable wins. So I think I would take the over on this if I was a betting man.
I agree. I mean, even at the juice, which is minus 215 on DraftKings at time of recording, I think it sounds like we're both taking the over. If you see 2 losses here, 170 plus 175 is not terrible value, but I don't really see it. I think Georgia is going to win probably all 12 of these. Would be my guess, and at least 11.
Just because I want this on the record, I have the Florida game as an auto win for Georgia.
So disrespectful.
I don't mean to be disrespectful towards Billy Napier, because I like Billy Napier, but Georgia's won 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 5 in that series.
More than that.
No, because Florida won. They've only lost once since 2016. I think I had it up in front of me earlier. Because Florida won 3 in a row, and now Georgia's pretty much dominated that series of late. And I'm not. I think it'll take a little bit of time for Billy Napier to get Florida up and running. I think Georgia's going to beat them by double digits.
Yep, you're right. Georgia's won 4 of the last 5. Yep. Most of them, all but one of those wins for Georgia were not close.
They're not close, yeah.
And the closest Georgia win was still 7 points, a full touchdown. I think that's a good place to end it. I think we're in agreement here on the over for the Bulldogs. We appreciate you guys joining with us, and you all have a great rest of your day.